it's an interesting paradox, right? On one side, there is a divergence of opinions about what the energy mix should be. And at the same time, especially in America, this is a golden time of electrification. We are here in New York for the Climate Week, while Schneider and ETC work a lot together. You come here, energy is front and center. What's on the top of your mind?
Well, I'm intrigued to find out here at New York Climate Week what the balance of sentiment is between some things that could make you pretty depressed about the world at the moment. I mean, we're still not bringing emissions down. The temperatures of the world are going up. You could say we're running out of time to deal with the climate change problem. On the other hand, the technologies which can help us solve it are racing ahead. The technologies of renewables, digitalization, energy efficiency.
It's an interesting paradox, right? On one side, there is a divergence of opinions about what the energy mix should be. And at the same time, especially in America, this is a golden time of electrification. With the push of AI and data centers, 50% of the world data centers being built here. So when I look at the world today, we see that push for electrification everywhere, and we seem to be at a real inflection point. It's not only about AI and technology powered by electricity, but at the same time, mobility in many places. It's about buildings, and digital is put on steroids by AI. The efficiency of AI applied to our infrastructures make it much more efficient. So two inflection points, electrification and digitization happening at the same time. Now, when we speak about energy, one thing we often discuss is that the unsung hero of the energy transition is the demand side.
Absolutely.
Where do you see the priorities?
We are sitting on the most extraordinary opportunity to grow what human beings want, which is useful energy services, while reducing the amount of energy that we need. If you actually look at primary energy inputs, the amount of coal and gas and oil that we have, that comes to something like 170,000 terawatt hours, but only about 120 of that turns up as final energy, as electricity or diesel or gasoline, and only about 60 of that 120, and therefore 60 out of the initial 170, currently turns out to be the useful energy that you actually want, like kinetic energy turning the wheels of a car.
Because of that fossil fuel conversion.
Because of the fossil fuels, because of the huge losses that occur because we create energy. We burn fossil fuels, and with the inefficiency of thermodynamic processes, we turn heat into work. We can get away from that, and we're just doing some work at the ETC where we're convinced that we can increase very significantly the useful energy and the energy services that people want by 70 or 80%, while reducing final energy inputs by 25% and primary energy by 36%. And we'll be publishing that soon. And at the absolute core of it is electrification. That is got to be provided in a zero carbon fashion. That's a lot of solar, that's a lot of wind, that's a lot of grids. There are no fundamental supply constraints on that. There's plenty of land in the world to put solar PV, but we've got to make sure that we use the land as efficiently as possible. Let's get as much of that solar PV on rooftops. Huge opportunity to do that. We've got to build the grids, but we've got to build those grids in an efficient fashion. And it's really interesting, huge opportunities with innovative grid technologies on both the hardware side and software tools like dynamic line rating, better understanding the grids, where we could probably get 30% more power through any given grid by just managing it.
From existing grid, right?
Even from an existing grid. The other thing that we've really got to focus on is demand side flexibility and managing demand. We've got to really think about not only being as efficient as possible about total electricity demand, but about peak electricity demand. Because of course, a lot of the cost in the electricity systems, particularly in the distribution networks, comes off peak demand. And there's so many things we could do to enable people to move their demand away from peak and have a much more cost-efficient system.
So it's fair to say that today grids are massively under-leveraged because our dimension for a peak, which never happens. or it happens very seldom.
But happens very seldom.
And what we can do with digitization, with smart grid, with flexibility, demand response, is to make sure that unlike the old system where the grid was dimensioned for the maximum of demand, actually we incite every of us, we empower every of us to consume when electricity is cheap and abundant. And you didn't speak about storage. Storage is now coming at cost, at maturity. It's going to be everywhere aboard our cars, but it's going to be everywhere as a stationary storage, which is it an essential piece of the jigsaw?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the great news is, I mean, of all the technologies over the last 15 years, two stand out for cost reduction. One is solar PV, which has come down over 90%, and the other is batteries, that has also come down over 90%. And the performance have gone up, the energy density has gone up, that's giving us the bigger range in electric vehicles. But it does mean that the combination of solar plus batteries is now an absolute, killer app. It's a winning solution in many parts of the world. We will be able to take solar plus batteries, put them together, and deliver power 24 hours a day at a lower cost than fossil fuels. Now, there's crucial issues about where we deploy the batteries. Do we deploy them in the home?
Centrally.
Do we employ them in the distribution grid? Do we employ them centrally? And there's no right answer to that. We need power market designs and incentives that help people explore the way to the most efficient. But I would say stationary storage batteries is a market that's just going to go through the roof, and everything to do with how they're provided and new business models. The whole of battery as a service, I think we're going to see as a major new business opportunity.
I think what both of us like in that evolution is that digitization gives you the understanding, the intelligence of your energy, makes everybody responsible on what's happening. And that combination of solar batteries allows you to decentralize a lot of that energy, which means that energy used to be something in the hands of some third-party company, and it's becoming now delegated, or it empowers all of us to manage locally our own equation. We can produce, we can store, we can save, and we can understand, which means all of us are actors of that major evolution. A little bit what the internet produced in digital. What are the biggest challenges we have at the level of infrastructure to support such a transition?
Well, I think the biggest one is probably the grids. It's also the planning system. Look, I mean, wind and solar are cheaper ways of producing electricity than fossil fuels in most parts of the world, but it just takes time to get them in place. And we suffer from these really sclerotic planning systems where things take forever. I mean, you could build an offshore wind platform. In 4 years, you could do all your environmental analysis. You could take the measures to make sure you'd understood whether this is a silly place to build it because the birds are going to pass there, etc. You need rules on that. But the trouble at the moment is all the things we have to think about in the planning process are often dealt with sequentially, where they could be dealt with in parallel. So you have things like offshore wind developments take 11 years from initial idea to actually generation, and they could be 4. You have similar things in grids. So really being
even
smart.
in solar, I would say, decentralized solar, you have the same kind of bureaucracy.
So really being smart about that is key. I think grids is particularly interesting, and transmission grids. One particular thing that we've highlighted is long distance transmission grids are a real opportunity, including intercontinental transmission grids, linking places which are incredibly cheap providers of wind and solar, like North Africa, to places like North Europe, which will never be as cheap because we just don't have the land and we don't have the solar, or different time zones linking, say, the Gulf to Gujarat in India.
To benefit from sun.
So that you can benefit from the sun after the sun has gone down in India. And that's a significant opportunity.
So look, when we speak about energy, and we've spoken many times together about energy, it seems that many things seems to be long-term horizon, while at the same time we see short-term problems piling up, right? Geopolitical tensions entailing price increases of energy, Europe being a point in case, and then climate disorders, right? What do you think are the priorities for the next 12 months as we are starting today the Climate Week?
Well, I think the crucial thing, and this will be important at COP30 in Belém in Brazil, is to maintain a sense of momentum despite the US exit. from the Paris process, and I think that will be achieved. I think it's to make sure that amid all the noise, people focus on what really matters. And what really matters is electrifying as much of the economy as possible and decarbonizing our power systems. Now, within that, I think there are a few things that have come into vision now which weren't there to the same extent 5 years ago. For instance, I think that solar plus batteries are now so cheap that there are some of the low-income parts of the world, like Africa, are sitting on an opportunity which didn't exist 5 years ago. If we
to leapfrog, right?
To leapfrog, just leapfrog over the fossil fuel stage. And if we can mobilize capital flows to reduce the cost of capital, I think we could unleash a real revolution of huge benefit to those societies.
Is it fair also to say that let's just deploy what we have and that makes economic sense? You spoke about solar plus batteries, energy efficiency based on digital also brings a terrific return. I think the priority would be also to skill everybody to those new technologies, from architects to city planners, to politicians, on skilling a lot of electricians. One say today in the US, if we want to power data centers, we are missing 500,000 to 1 million electricians.
Yes.
So a lot to do. We'll keep working with the ETC, Schneider and the ETC. I think what keeps us very strongly connected is a will to see very far away and to understand where are the long-term solutions, but the absolute determination to tackle it tomorrow. And to do it pragmatically with practical solutions. Thank you very much, Adair. Always good to meet you.
Great.